How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder. In this latest episode, we're going to cover a few topics. I know it's been a little bit since my last episode. We're kind of going to give you a recap of the last couple weeks in the NFL, where everybody kind of sits currently in the standings. We'll also talk about some coaching moves. The Giants made it official. They let go of head coach Brian Daboll, so I'll give you my thoughts on that after their latest collapse, if you will, at the hands of the Chicago Bears on Sunday, losing 24-20 in Soldier Field. And then also I wanted to talk a little bit about baseball as well, give you my thoughts on the Yankees offseason and what their plans could be, what they potentially could do, what they have done so far. They gave Trent Grisham the qualifying offer, so I'll get into all that as well. But yeah, I apologize if I haven't been coming out with content as of late. We're going to try to get back to our normal schedule. So now the main reason is because my picks have not been going so well, so I'm kind of embarrassed to come on and share them with you with how poorly I've been doing the last couple of weeks. No, that's not it. But yeah, anyways, let's just get into the NFL to start off here. So yeah, last couple weeks I haven't done any videos, but we'll talk about where everything kind of currently stands at the moment. So, there's parity this year. There is parity this year. I don't think there is a clear favorite when talking about who you think could potentially win the Super Bowl. Now, the team that I picked before the season to win the Super Bowl was the LA Rams, and that looks very good right now. I still worry because that collapse against the Eagles, that still holds some merit as we move along here, because I still can't wrap my head around the fact that the Rams lost that game. But outside of that hiccup, and then they also had that loss to the 49ers in overtime, the shorthanded 49ers, that was not very good either, but they have looked like one of the best teams in the NFL. Outside of those two losses. Now, again, they definitely leave a bad taste in my mouth, but they have looked very good. Matthew Stafford is playing at an MVP level. Every week it seems like he's throwing 4 touchdown passes. The move to bring in Devontae Adams has really panned out for them. Kyron Williams is running the football effectively. They have to keep Puka Nacua healthy, obviously, because he's been banged up a little bit this year. They're protecting Stafford, which is very important as well, and their defense continues to be one of the league's best. And they're going to be dangerous. They're going to be a dangerous team. Now, it's funny because you would think, having said all that they're running away with this division. Well, the 49ers, they just beat up the 49ers this past Sunday. I don't know if Brock Purdy's going to be coming back this week. Every week it seems like, he is limited in practice, still dealing with the turf toe. Every week you're thinking, is this going to be the week? Is this going to be the week? But it continues to be Mac Jones, and Mac Jones has performed very well for the Niners. So will it be this upcoming week that Brock Purdy makes his return? And I know there's been kind of this QB controversy stirring as of right now. Look, they just gave Brock Purdy a contract extension. He's gonna take the reins back whenever he's ready to go. But the 49ers, to give them credit, with all the injuries that they have dealt with, all the season-ending injuries, whether it's to Nick Bosa and Fred Warner on the defensive side of the ball, they're still waiting for Brandon Ayuk to come back, and they still haven't opened up his practice window. But all the season-ending injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and you're still waiting for your receiving core to come back. Ricky Pearsall is also out. Brock Purdy still hasn't come back. The Niners have still been winning games, and they are in the playoff race. Now, they currently don't hold the playoff spot right now. The Chicago Bears have taken that from them with their latest win, and the Niners falling to the Rams, like I said, on Sunday. But they're still in it. And if they get healthy with that coaching staff, Robert Saleh has had this defense playing well for the most part, even with a lot of their key guys being out. And you still got Kyle Shanahan leading the charge as the head coach. I know he's, some people have their critiques on him, and that's fair because, he hasn't won the big game yet, and he has choked away some big games. but he's still one of the better head coaches in the league. You got a veteran team. George Kittle is back. McCaffrey's had a great year. So you still got to respect this team. But yeah, they're still in it. The Rams, they of course are doing their thing. But the team that I wanted to talk about, as we went off on the 49ers, with them being in the playoff race, is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks, who I thought were going to be pretty good this year. I didn't have them making the playoffs. I had them being one of those teams that was on, just on the outside looking in. I obviously, gave them a chance. I gave them a chance to make the playoffs. I just didn't have them as a playoff team. I mean, I had all 4 NFC North teams making the playoffs. That doesn't look like that's happening. Even though right now, as things currently stand, 3 of the 4 NFC North teams are occupying playoff spots. Now, that could change. It could end up being 2 out of 4 or 1 out of 4. But right now, 3 of the 4. The Seattle Seahawks have been a very good team. They are one of the league's best this year. And these 2 NFC West rivals are going to clash this upcoming weekend. It's in LA. It's, there's a lot on the line. Sole possession of first place. It's on the line. One of these teams is going to be a wild card team. But the Seattle Seahawks, to me, barring a huge collapse, they are going to be in the playoffs. They are going to be in the playoffs. I mean, obviously the same thing goes to Rams if they collapse, but these 2 teams are going to be in the playoffs. Now it's just a matter of who's it going to be? Who's going to be the division winner? Who's going to be the wild card? One of the wild card teams. But you kind of looked at this offseason, and you look at the defensive side of the ball. They have a lot of talent. They brought in DeMarcus Lawrence, the guys in the secondary that they have. I mean, their defense on all 3 levels, very good. It's very good. And offensively, they have been better than I thought they were going to be. Now, I thought they were going to be a competent offense, but they're rolling these last 2 weeks. Sam Darnold, I mean, I know he turned the ball over a few times, but the game was out of reach at that point. The Seahawks, they were on cruise control the rest of the way. The score, I know the Cardinals did put up some touchdowns there, but it was more, the score really didn't tell the whole story. But Sam Darnold has played very well this year. He's looked very good. He's making the Vikings look a little silly for letting him walk. But yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba, this is his moment. He going into this season, he was now like, hey, there's no more DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. They let go of the veterans. How are you going to be now as the true number 1 receiver in this offense? And he's taking it over with no problems. He looks like a true number 1. They're running they could definitely run the football better with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. I still feel they could still get better production out of those guys. Charbonnet has kind of been like that, red zone guy. But that's still a solid tandem that they have, those 2 guys. I like what I've seen out of AJ Barner. He's had some big catches for them. Horton, as well, the other receiver. Cooper Kupp really hasn't done much, but still, it's good to have him there. He had a big reception on Sunday against the Cardinals that went a long way. This is a complete team. I do worry going into the playoffs because you still think about, having said that, seeing how Darnold has played this year, I still think about that playoff game against the Rams. Okay? Now, I don't want to say that was all on him, wasn't getting good protection. So maybe second chance comes around in the postseason. How is he going to live up? Is he going to put together a better performance? If he gets better protection. I think they're really the Seahawks. They're going to go as far as Sam Darnold takes them because this defense is one of the league's best. Okay, I mean, the clinic that they put on Sunday against the Cardinals. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence, who I mentioned, one of their acquisitions, 2 fumble recoveries for a touchdown. With him and Leonard Williams up front, and like I said, in the secondary, They're loaded. They're loaded. This is a dangerous team. But I think they're going to go as far as Sam Darnold takes them. Because, if you match up with a Philadelphia, you match up with the Rams, and we're going to see how they look when these two teams match up on Sunday. You're going to have to match what these teams do. Now, Philadelphia is not coming off of a great offensive performance, but with the experience that they've had and being the defending Super Bowl champs, when they need to make plays, they will make plays on offense. And they showed that on Monday night against the Packers. So, Saquon Barkley starts getting it going, and Jalen Hurts starts hitting his receivers, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith had that huge touchdown on Monday night against the Packers. Dallas Gardner makes plays. You got to be able to match that if you're Sam Darnold. And, if Seattle has to travel, like if Seattle's a wild card team and you're going to have to go and you're going to have to take on like Philadelphia, if you have to go on the road and go to Philly, that's a tough place to play. It's going to be interesting. But I really like where Seattle is at right now. They are a dangerous team. They are really a dangerous team. So we'll see how this season continues to shape out for them. But I mean, what they did to the Cardinals, what they did to the Commanders as well a couple weeks ago. I mean, that game was never close. I mean, the Commanders, that's a team that has really regressed from the previous season. They went from the NFC Championship game to, I mean, they're not even going to they might have a top 10 pick this year. I mean, when's the last time they won a game? And now, talk about the Commanders for a second. Jayden Daniels was still in the game late. I think the score at that point was 38. Was it 38-7? And then he ends up getting tackled. He takes off with the football. He's running with it. He ends up falling down, and he ends up dislocating his elbow. I mean, now there's some positive news on that front. The injury is not as significant as it looked. If you saw the video of it, if you were watching the game live. But the fact he was in there at that point, that shouldn't have been the case. He should have been taken out. But yeah, it's just this has been a very disappointing season for the Commanders, and I know Dan Quinn received a lot of heat for it. I don't think Jayden Daniels should have been playing. The game was out of reach. I know there have been teams this year that have come back from significant deficits in a short amount of time. The Broncos against the Giants, but you got to wave the white flag. You got to wave the white flag. I mean, the defense was not getting any stops. They were quick. I mean, these Seahawks drives, they were quick. I mean, it'd be a turn, right? I think they turned the ball over, and then all of a sudden, Seattle, like next play, touchdown. I think that was the Horton touchdown in that game. It just, you needed to wave the white flag at that point. But the defense has not been good for the Commanders. I saw that Dan Quinn is going to be taking over play calling duties. I mean, we'll see. But they're dealing with injuries on that side of the ball. Marshawn Lattimore, I think, is out. But it's just, team's not the same. Terry McLaurin, I mean, he's been in and out of the lineup all year. They can't really run the football. And I know Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt got all that hype from the preseason. I mean, he really didn't live up to the hype. Had a very good game against the Chargers, in the middle of the season. But after that, he hasn't really produced for them. It's just not their year. It's not their year. And that's not to say that next year you come back and you become that team that you were from last year. But, yeah, it's just, and, there's a lot of people kind of taking a second look at Jayden Daniels and saying, was that a fluke? We'll see. And he's getting comparisons to RG3. And the weird coincidences with the injury. It was against the same team. I think the same quarter. Not exactly the same injury, but Washington quarterback. It was strange, and it's similar to the weird coincidence with the Joe Theismann and the Alex Smith injuries as well. So yeah, Washington just can't catch a break with their quarterbacks. Now, again, this was the injury. It's not as bad as we originally thought, so that's a positive. The Commanders, they got some work to do though in the offseason. They've got to hope that Jaden Daniels can come back 100%. I don't think he's going to come back this year. I think they should kind of just say, you know what, let's let you rest. Get you into the offseason healthy, and then come back next season strong. Because it's just, I mean, the way the NFC playoff picture is right now, and Philadelphia is going to win this division again. There's no point in bringing him back. There's no point. So, yeah, Washington has just been, it's not been good. It's not been good. What are they now, 3-7? Yeah, I mean, it's not like what it was last year when everything just seemed like it was going right. This year, it's the complete opposite. Everything is going wrong. And Jane Daniels hasn't stayed healthy. He's a guy that needs to, he also needs to protect himself better. Because it just seems like he's getting hurt on plays that he's not protecting himself. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to change a player's, way of, their style, because that's just who he is. He's a guy that's going to use his legs, and that's what made him so dangerous last year. But, it does hurt him at times. And look at, Jackson Dart as well. I mean, that's his style. And now he's in concussion protocol, and he's probably not going to play on Sunday. So, yeah. But, yeah, hopefully Jane Daniels, he bounces back from this. We'll see if he plays again this year or if we have to wait till next year, which I think that would be the better choice. So, yeah, the Commanders, not looking good right now. What else? I mean, with the NFC East, staying with the NFC East, we talked about the Eagles a little bit. They beat the Packers 10-7. So we started off week 10 already. No, now we're in week 11. We had the Broncos winning 10-7 over the Raiders, and then we ended week 10 with a 10-7 game. Eagles over the Packers. Eagles, I mean, they moved the ball down the field in their first drive. It looked like they were going to go in for a score with ease, and then Jalen Hurts ends up fumbling. Both defenses played very well on Monday night. But, yeah, the offenses struggled. I mean, the Packers' offense, they just couldn't get anything going. They were relying on Josh Jacobs, heavy dose of Josh Jacobs in this game. They just kept running the football. And Jordan Love did not play great, had a bad turnover. He also fumbled the football himself. But he also wasn't getting some help, really any help from his receivers. There were some drops in this game that costed them. But they're missing a lot of weapons. I mean, Tucker Kraft is now out. The Packers, they've lost 2 in a row. After I saw them in Pittsburgh, how well they looked on offense. And I thought they were going to turn the page. And Jordan Love was going to take off. They don't score a touchdown until the fourth quarter in back-to-back games. They lose to the Panthers at home, 16-13. And then you lose 10-7 to the Eagles. And you don't score a touchdown until the fourth quarter. So, yeah, but they're missing Tucker Kraft now. He tore his ACL against the Panthers. He was having a great season. So you were without him. There was no Matthew Golden last night. They were shorthanded. And the protection for Jordan Love, it's got to be better. It's got to be better. They could not protect him. He was getting hit last night. And the Packers right now, I mean, they got off to a good start. They beat the Commanders and they beat the Lions, and you're thinking, oh, I mean, they look very good. Since then, yeah, I don't think this team is really going to go far again this year. I don't. And there's a lot of Packer fans not happy with Matt LaFleur and the play calling. I do think that you need to have some kind of balance with this offense. Because I think this was the same problem last year. Josh Jacobs is a very good running back, okay? He is arguably their best player on offense, all right? And you could make the argument when Tucker Kraft was healthy, it was Tucker Kraft. But going back to last year, I mean, Josh Jacobs, that was a home run signing, all right? He ran the football very effectively for them, and, that's been a good – that contract has lived up. so far. But you also paid Jordan Love a lot of money, okay? You need to put the ball in his hands more too. Now, it also doesn't help when pass protection is poor, and you got wide receivers dropping passes, and he also is turning the ball over. But I feel like they really, in the first half, they were really, really leaning on Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love was not dropping back and throwing a ton of passes. He really didn't throw a ton of passes yesterday, or whenever you're watching this. But you also there's gotta be a balance. You gotta have some pass plays in there. You gotta balance it out. Keep the defense off balance. And I just feel like that's part of the problem. Is you gotta throw some more passing plays in there. All right. Now you also again didn't have your full, your full arsenal of weapons. So that is a problem. But still, you gotta change something up. And the defense was amazing yesterday for the Packers. They kept them in the game. Both defenses were phenomenal. That was a classic game, classic defensive battle. And the Packers, in their losses, take out the tie with Dallas. Obviously, that's a tie. But you give up 13 points to the Browns, right? You give up 16 points to the Panthers. You give up 10 points to the Eagles, right? You should win those games. And they're not winning those games. It's on the offense. The offense has to be better. Because once again, right now this team looks like they are headed for another first-round exit. Or they could miss the playoffs if things don't get right. Things can unravel very quickly for the Packers if they don't get things right. But it's gonna be tough. Matthew Golden is gonna come back, right? I would think. Jaden Reed, who got hurt earlier this year, he's supposed to come back soon, so that's really gonna help. They miss him. You got Christian Watson back. I know Romeo Doubs got banged up last night, but this is what you got. So there's time to correct this, but it's got to happen very quickly. Otherwise, we could be in for a disastrous finish for the Packers. And after I saw what I saw in Pittsburgh, I thought this team looks like they're ready to take off. But I guess I could have been more reflective on Pittsburgh's defense at the time. Speaking of the Steelers, so we're going to segue into the Steelers. We're going to jump around a little bit. So the Steelers, since we last spoke, they defeated the Indianapolis Colts, forced 6 turnovers. Daniel Jones had 5 turnovers in the game. They won that. And then their offense put up 10 points on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers. So here's my thing with the Steelers. Going into this season, with Mike Tomlin's record and what he's done and what he hasn't done is have a losing record. I said the Steelers are going to find a way, get 10 wins. And I'm still going to stand by that. They're at 5 right now. There's some tough games left on the schedule. But I'm still going to sit here and say they can get those 10 wins. Now, that did not mean that I thought the 10 wins were going to be pretty. No. And that it was going to come easy. It was not. My microphone falls over. This Steelers team, they could make the playoffs. I still think they will. But they're not going to go very far if they do. Because I just think you're not going to win games every single week. You can't rely on your defense to get 5 to 6 takeaways like they did against the Patriots and like they did against the Colts. You're not going to get that every single game. And also, and I watched a little bit of Ben Roethlisberger's podcast. This offense just, there's no identity. There's a lack of an identity with this team. Do they want to run the football? Are they a passing team? What are they? And I just feel like you don't really know. And the other thing too is, and I would think that they are going to activate MVS, who they just signed, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who is familiar with Aaron Rodgers during their time with the Packers. But there's not a lot of dynamic playmakers. There's not really any dynamic playmakers on this offense. I guess you could say DK Metcalf, but like, who else scares you? Or does DK even scare you to begin with? Like, I like the tight ends. I like Jonnu Smith. I like Darnell Washington. I like Pat Freiermuth. I like Jaylen Warren. I like Kenneth Gainwell. But it's just, there's no flavor. It's just like, and the other thing too is Kenneth Gainwell was in from, what was it? He was in for more snaps than Jaylen Warren was. Jaylen Warren is arguably their best offensive player outside of DK Metcalf. And Kenneth Gainwell hasn't been bad for them. He had that good game against Minnesota when Jaylen Warren was out. Why is Jaylen Warren not in more? And you could see that Jaylen Warren is a tough runner, and he gets the tough yards, and he was having a decent game on Sunday. Why do you not commit to him more when you see that the passing game is struggling? It's just a little bit of a head scratcher. But yeah, the Steelers, Sunday's game, and I was hoping for a good performance out of Rodgers in this offense, but I wasn't surprised by the outcome. Rodgers misses DK Metcalf on that deep shot. And Rodgers was off target all night, and he talked about it afterwards. And then he you thought Jonnu Smith caught that pass along the sidelines, but they reviewed it and it was incomplete. The ball hit the ground. And then Chris Boswell uncharacteristically misses a 45-yard field goal. And he started off the game making a 59-yard field goal. But there was a lot of missed opportunities. And then the safety happened, which that was uncharacteristic of Rodgers. And he even said he should have threw it away. But yeah, got sacked by Khalil Mack, and that made it 3-2 at that point. And at that point, the Chargers, the Steelers' defense kept them in it, but the Steelers' offense just could not do anything. But yeah, Rodgers was off target. He was overthrowing guys. He was underthrowing guys. He underthrew Calvin Austin on that deep shot he took in the game. He overthrew DK Metcalf, which led to a pick. And then, like I said, the receivers, Calvin Austin, Rodgers hits him right in the hands, and it deflects off of him, and it gets intercepted by Dante Jackson, who was previously with the Steelers. So, yeah, offense lacks an identity. I think they should have. They did try to get another receiver, but from what I was seeing on social media, they were interested in Rashid Shaheed. They made runs at him and Jacoby Myers, but both of those guys wanted to go elsewhere. Jacoby Myers has now ended up with the Jaguars, and Rashid Shaheed is now a member of the Seattle Seahawks. So the Steelers tried to make a run at some receivers, but they didn't get them, and they settled for MVS. And we'll see if he plays on Sunday. But it's a problem. It is a problem. And Rodgers was not good, like I said. I think the protection has to be better. I just think that this offense still is looking to find itself. And where, it's week 11 now. And unfortunately for them, and they're an older team, they had their bye week back in week 5. And they had their Thursday night game already. I don't think they play on a Thursday night again, no, they don't. This is it. And that's why, like this season, when I saw week 5 bye, I was like, it might not bode well for them because they're an older team. You got a 41-year-old quarterback. You got guys in the secondary that are in their 30s. Your defense is older. You got T.J. Watt who's getting up there in age, and Cam Hayward is an older player. They were one of those teams that needed a later bye, and they're not going to get that. So, yeah, look, I think the Steelers' defense maybe figured something out. I know the score was 25-10, but they were getting stops. They were getting the Chargers off the field. It's just the Steelers' offense was not generating anything, and then eventually the Chargers were able to get into a rhythm. Justin Herbert was able to make plays. They benefited from the turnovers by Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers' offense, and then Herbert hits Ladd McConkey, and he almost took it the distance. And that set up for more points. The offense needed to step up, and it didn't. So now you go into this week, you're taking on the Bengals, and they've got some news on Joe Burrow that he's going to begin practicing. Now, I think if the Bengals are completely out of it, I think if they lose these next couple games, he's another guy. Just sit him, wait till next year. But if there's a sliver of hope, if there is a chance that they could maybe sneak in, then I guess you could try to play him. But Joe Flacco has played very well. It's just there's been some bad losses. Losing to the Jets, losing to the Bears in a wild game. That defense can't stop anything. And then you got kind of this civil war going on. Not really, but the offense and the defense. The offense just Chase Brown speaking out saying, "Can you get a stop?" How did Colston Loveland scores that touchdown? All he had to do was tackle him, and he just bounces off of the Bengals player like a pinball and scores a touchdown. That was a wild game, and the Bears almost choked that. They let the Bengals recover an onside kick late. That was not good for the Bengals, but for the Bears, not good for the Bears at that moment, but they still got the win. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Bengals are making a run at anything. I think they're missing the playoffs. That defense is still not. It still leaves you hopeless. And that's why you go back to what they did in the offseason. Like, yeah, it's great. You brought back Jamar Chase. You signed him long term. You signed T. Higgins, but the defense still is not getting any better. There's going to be changes coming in Cincinnati. And I know there's some rumors out there that they could maybe move off of Joe Burrow. I don't think that's going to happen. I thought the most likeliest outcome was you re-sign Jamar Chase and you let T. Higgins go. Maybe you sign and trade T. Higgins. That would have made sense. And I know it would be tough to part ways with him because he is a good player, but Jamar Chase is the better of the two. All right? You could find another wide receiver too at a cheaper price and get some picks back and address your weaknesses on defense. And you could have paid some guys this offseason maybe to improve that. But they didn't do that. And they did trade one of their defensive players to Dallas during the trade deadline. But yeah, no, the Bengals, they're not making a run at anything this year. They're missing the playoffs again. So yeah, we talked about the Steelers, the Bengals, we kind of jumped around. The Ravens are slowly getting themselves back into the conversation. They've come off of 2 straight victories, now with Lamar Jackson back. Listen, they can make a run at this division now with Pittsburgh kind of stumbling. Going to be curious to see how those matchups go later in the year. But yeah, look, if Lamar Jackson stays healthy, the Ravens are a dangerous team. I think the defense is kind of stabilized a bit because that was a weakness this year. And that was kind of the same thing last year. Well, it was really the pass defense. The run defense was good. But they've dealt with injuries on the defensive side of the ball this year, especially up front where they're usually strong. So we'll see how it goes. But Ravens, they're not done yet. They are not done yet. They came off of a win against the Dolphins, came off a win against this past Sunday against the Vikings. So we'll see. But the Browns, it's going to be interesting what their quarterback situation is like going forward. Dylan Gabriel looks like he's going to continue to get these starts, but could we see Shedeur Sanders at some point? That remains to be seen. But yeah, they're on their way to having a top pick, one of the top picks in the draft upcoming. Actually, we'll go back to the NFC North. So the Lions, I mean, they look good. Well, they looked good this past week. They did lose to the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy making his return, made some big throws. Jared Goff was pressured in that game. And the Vikings came away with an upset victory. But, yeah, the Lions, they looked very good against Washington. Washington's defense is not very good. Dan Campbell is supposedly taking over now he's taking over the play calling duties. So we'll see. A big Sunday night game coming up between the Eagles and the Lions. Looking forward to that. There's some good games coming up this weekend. You got Eagles and the Lions. You got the Chiefs and the Broncos. And then you have the Seahawks and the Rams. I mean, we got some good football games coming up this weekend. But yeah, Lions, they look like they're taking the division back. The Vikings, look, I said it earlier, I think they're a little silly they look silly for letting go of Sam Darnold. I think they should have gave it one more year and let McCarthy just sit behind Darnold. I think they made a mistake there. It looks bad now. I mean, who knows? Maybe they keep Darnold and then he doesn't live up to it. I don't know. But J.J. McCarthy just doesn't look like he's it right now. But he also doesn't have a lot of starts under his belt. But the problem is this Vikings team is ready to win now. And what is holding them back is the quarterback position. And I just feel like with Sam Darnold, they'd be in a lot better of a position right now. But you know what? They drafted J.J. McCarthy. They want to see what they have in him. And you know what? Their season's not completely dead yet. They still have a chance. But he's got to figure things out in a hurry. You got to get on the same page as Justin Jefferson. Because, Jefferson was targeted 12 times. I think he only had like 5 catches. Got to get on the same page with your best wide receiver. And they got to obviously be able to run the football too. The roster is there. Quarterback's got to play better. So we'll see what happens. And the Bears, listen, I had the Bears making the playoffs. I like what I've seen out of Caleb Williams. Again, he still scares me every time he scrambles with the football. He's good. Not that it's hurt him with some of the scrambles against the Giants. But, I feel like someone's going to knock that ball out. But also, I just feel like he just scares me with how he runs. Like, he's going to hurt himself. I don't know. That's just how I am with these mobile quarterbacks, But, yeah, look, he's definitely made strides this year. I think Ben Johnson is the right guy. I do have some issues, particularly with the defense. The defense I thought was going to be better. It really hasn't. I think that's going to hurt them and maybe knock them out of the playoffs, out of a playoff spot. But I think Caleb Williams, he's made strides this year. Like what I've seen out of Rome Odunze. We saw how Monangai looked as the RB1 against the Bengals. I know it's against the Bengals, but still. So, they want to try to have that tandem with him and DeAndre Swift, and Colston Loveland's come on strong. So, the Bears are heading in the right direction. And they're 6-3. So give them credit. I know you look at their wins. Some of the teams that they've beaten. But listen, they're in a playoff spot. They definitely look better. They've come back when they're down. They've overcome some adversity. And you go back to last year, look at all the games that they lost down the stretch from poor clock management. and just boneheaded plays. The Hail Mary and the Thanksgiving game last year. Thanksgiving's coming up. They won't be playing on Thanksgiving this year, but yeah, I mean, how the final seconds of that game was handled. So yeah, I like where they're going. But yeah, the defense has to show some improvement. And let's see how they do against these other teams in the North. I don't know, have they played? Actually, yeah, they played the Bears. They did play the Bears, or they did play the Bears. They played the yeah. Obviously, the Bears played the Bears. They are the Bears. The Bears played the Lions. Lions beat them up, and then they lost to the Vikings on Monday night. When they were up, and then J.J. McCarthy had that monster fourth quarter. So they have not played the Packers yet, and they will be playing the Vikings and the Lions one more time. Well, they play the Vikings this week, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so those are the two, the NFC and the AFC North. We talked about the West. I didn't really talk about the Cardinals in the NFC West. I mean, Kyler Murray is going to be out. It looks like they're going to be Splitsville, Cardinals and Kyler Murray. So he's going to be a trade candidate this offseason. It's amazing because recently, I mean, I think it was last year, I mean, they said he's our franchise guy. Well, it doesn't seem like that anymore. Jacoby Brissett stepped in. He's played decent for him, but he is not going to be the long-term answer. So, yeah, but the Cardinals are not going anywhere this year. The AFC West, I mean, right now the Broncos lead it. They're 8-2, but they're drawing comparisons to the 2020 Steelers, and we remember how that year ended. The Broncos, yeah, I feel like they're 8-2, but they're another team. You want to see more, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. The offense, I mean, that Thursday night game was tough to watch. It was tough to watching them against the Raiders. I mean, their defense is phenomenal. Their defense is amazing, but the offense, I mean, and they got talent. I mean, I think Bo Nix is solid. I like the receivers. I like the running backs with Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. It looks like Dobbins could be headed for IR, and that paves the way for R.J. Harvey to be the RB1. Evan Ingram has kind of been disappointing this year, even though he started the year off injured. I like what they have on offense. I expect more out of them, and we're not getting it. But this offense is really going to have to come up big because they're taking on the Chiefs. It's a big game coming up. But yeah, Broncos right now, they're in first place, but I don't know if they're going to be the team that finishes in first place because you got the Chargers right behind them, and then obviously the Chiefs. This would be a big win for them if they can, get the win coming off of the bye. And they're coming off of a bye too, and the Chiefs usually win. So, but yeah, the Chargers. Look, they're without Joe Walton, Rashawn Slater for the rest of the season. That's really tough. They're still waiting on Omari and Hampton to come back. Chargers have dealt with the injury bug this year, but this team is better than how they were last year. We'll see if Justin Herbert could finally silence the critics and at least win a playoff game this year. Right now, I wouldn't count them out to win the division. I wouldn't count them out when it comes to the division. I think they could definitely take the division. Just got to protect Justin Herbert, man. That's the key, and he's getting hit a lot. Like the NBC was showing graphics on Sunday. I mean, you got to protect him, because you don't want to get him hurt, and then otherwise, then you're really done. So, with the Chiefs, look, the Bills, they own them in the regular season. Obviously, coming off of the bye, the Bills knocked them off 28-21. Mahomes, didn't play his best game. But to me, it was just they played each other so many times. Again, the Bills own them in the regular season. Okay? If these two teams do match up in the postseason, it's going to be different. It is going to be different. But the Bills, they get up for these games in the regular season. So we'll see what happens. Right now, the Chiefs aren't even in a playoff spot, but they will be when it's all said and done. The offense looks a lot better than how it was last year, especially getting everybody back healthy. Worthy, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce's had a good year. You'd like another team that you'd like to see them run the football better. But what, the defense is still strong. Mahomes is playing well. He's having one of his best seasons. after some subpar years offensively, even though they made it to the Super Bowl the last 3 years. But they're going to be a dangerous team. Don't count them out. Raiders, yeah, it's not looking good. Not looking good for them. There's a lot of issues. And when you brought in Pete Carroll and you traded for Geno Smith, they were expecting to be competitive, and they really haven't been that. Now, they could have won these last 2 weeks. Those games were up for grabs. That overtime loss to Jacksonville, Brock Bowers came back, had 3 touchdowns, and then only had, I think, like a few catches against the Broncos. One of them was like for 30 yards. I think he had a couple of catches. I know he had that one, like I said, that went for 30 yards, but getting him back was huge. It's just this team has a lot. The Raiders got a lot of work to do. And it's going to be interesting what kind of offseason they are going to have. They do need a quarterback. I know they paid Geno Smith, but he's not the franchise quarterback. And Pete Carroll, look, he's up there in age. Like, how long is he going to be sticking around for? Unless the Raiders say, depending on how the season goes, they don't want him back. So, yeah, no, things are looking rough out in Vegas. Looking at the NFC South and the AFC South, the Texans with that amazing comeback win against the Jaguars, couldn't believe it. They scored 26 points in the fourth quarter, 26-0. They outscored the Jags. Now, one of them was a touchdown that happened at the very end. Trevor Lawrence lost the football and Sheldon Rankins ran it in for a touchdown. But I couldn't believe that they came back. And this was without C.J. Stroud. This was Davis Mills at quarterback. So the Texans got a huge win there. They're 4-5. They're still in it. And look, they have a very good defense. And C.J. Stroud had started to look better. Then he suffered that concussion against the Broncos, that big hit. Broncos won that game at the end. Texans are still in it, and I think you're starting to see more from some of these young guys, the young receivers. Woody Marks making more of an impact. They still got a shot at making the playoffs. Now, the division is going to be tough because of the Colts and the lead that they have right now, but I don't know, man. I think the Colts could come back down to earth. That's what I've been seeing as of late, even though they did come off of a win. But yeah, the Jaguars, I brought it up, Travis Hunter, I think earlier. Travis Hunter's going to be out for the year. Actually, I don't know. I don't think I brought that up. But yeah, Travis Hunter's going to be out for the year. They traded for Jacoby Myers. Brian Thomas Jr. has been injured. Trevor Lawrence has just been... he has this big moment on Monday night, right, against the Chiefs. But I just feel like he's kind of been, average to below average this year. I'm not really impressed. I'm not. And now you're coming off a collapse like this. Where you got to get back. You got to get back off the mat. And you got to keep it going. We'll see how they bounce back. That was a tough loss. That was a tough loss for the Jaguars. But right now they're still in a playoff spot. They're still in a playoff spot. The Titans, look, they're another team not going great. Going to have a top pick. We'll see how Cam Ward looks down the stretch here. And then the Colts. So with the Indianapolis Colts, I think this is a good team. But what I've seen the last 2 weeks, there's some cracks in the armor with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has had a very good year. There's no question about it. But you're starting to see why how Giant fans viewed him when he was with them. With the turnovers, and that continued even on Sunday against the Falcons. I don't think this team to me, I don't think is going to go very far. Even if they are the 1 seed. I just, because I think he is going to be the reason that they lose in the playoffs. He is going to, he's going to make bad plays in big moments to me. Now, he did win a playoff game against the Vikings all those years ago. I get it. But I don't trust him. I don't trust him. You're starting to see him revert back to how he was with the Giants and why it didn't work out with the Giants. But having said that, the reason why the Colts didn't lose on Sunday is because of Jonathan Taylor. That is going to be the reason why the Colts can go far, is because of Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, 244 rushing yards, if I'm correct. 3 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime. I mean, he has been unbelievable. This is his best season yet. You know, and he's established himself as the best running back in the game right now. I mean, could he be the MVP this year? Well, if Saquon didn't win last year, I mean, I know quarterbacks are playing very well this year, but, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I mean, 3 touchdowns again. I mean, this is not the first time he's done that. He has been unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's why you got to rely on him. Okay? If he can have the games like this, I mean, well, he's not going to have 250 yards and 3 touchdowns every week. But, and you saw, like, against the Steelers, he didn't really do anything, but that's because they were playing from behind. If you can rely on Jonathan Taylor, and the Colts made some moves at the trade deadline, they brought in Sauce Gardner. Like I said, we'll talk about the trade. We'll talk about some of the trades. We kind of did that already. You know, the defense is not bad. You got to get some guys back from injuries. You got Jonathan Taylor. You got a good trio of weapons. You got good offensive line. You got Tyler Warren, the tight end. Look, they do have good pieces. And the Colts, I believe that he could be the franchise quarterback, Daniel Jones. I just see the bloom is falling off the rose. I see it with these last 2 games, even though they won. Listen, they're 8-2, okay. But to me, when they get to the playoffs, it's going to be a whole different animal. You know, and I know they got Kansas City coming up in Arrowhead. You know, and they haven't played the Texans yet. They haven't played the Jaguars yet. They've only played the Titans, okay? You know, and not to say that they have no chance against these teams, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, you're going to be going up against that good defense with the Texans, you know, and the Jaguars are going to have something to say. We'll see. We'll see. And they go to, the Colts go to Seattle. So they got some tough games coming up on the schedule. I think the 49ers are in there too. They're on the bye, but when they come out of the bye, there's going to be no gimmies. All right, there's no more Tennessee Titans anymore on the schedule. So, and look, I know some people are going to hear this and be like, "Of course you're down on Daniel Jones." Look, it's just there's some issues. You know, the turnovers are an issue. Got to be able to protect the football. But you know what? Hey. What I will say about Daniel Jones is he's tough, all right, because he scrambled out of bounds and he smashed his face. Well, of course he's wearing his helmet, of course, but smashed his face into the I think the bench, and his whole mouth was bleeding. Didn't faze him. Kept going. So, look. You got that, and he's had a very good year. It's just, again, what I've seen from these past 2 weeks. Again, he's not flawless, okay? But we'll see. And you know what? And again, I'm happy that he's doing well. I am. Having said what I just said, but. Can't be turning the ball over in the playoffs. Can't be doing that. Because you will lose. You will lose. So we talked about the AFC South. NFC South, look, right now it's the Bucs division to lose. Nobody's catching them. I mean, the Panthers, I know, are up there, and they've had some big wins this year. I mean, that win in Lambeau, I still can't believe that happened. Bryce Young didn't even play well. But the Bucs should win. Now, I'm concerned with the injuries. I feel like that offense has not been clicking like it was earlier this season. You could also say because Godwin and Mike Evans are out. But then they came off with a loss against the Patriots. But I still think they're going to win this division. I think Baker Mayfield has to play a little bit better. I think he's not 100%. He's gutting it out. It's another guy that's tough as nails. But yeah, it's they haven't been clicking like they were earlier. But I think they should still win. All right, the Saints, I know they just came off a win. They're not going anywhere. Panthers, they're better than the Panthers, and the Falcons can't seem to get out of their own way. I mean, they lose. I mean, that was a game they should have won against the Colts. They didn't. Couldn't stop Jonathan Taylor. So, and again, Raheem Morris was getting killed because of the his clock management. So the Falcons don't use it right. They didn't use a timeout. Then Daniel Jones throws a pick, and if you would have used the timeout and Jones ended up throwing the pick, or if you did use the timeout and Daniel Jones throws the pick, then you had more time to get into field goal range and get some points before the end of the half, and they didn't do that. So he could be someone that's on his way out after this year. Raheem Morris with the Falcons. Saints picked up a win against the Panthers. Tyler Shuck, a couple of touchdown passes. Didn't look bad. So yeah, and then finally, with the two Eastern divisions, NFC East, AFC East, the Bills. Yeah, I mean, you come off with that win against the Chiefs. I guess they did too much partying because they go to Miami and they were flat. The defense couldn't stop Achane. Josh Allen turned the ball over. It was ugly. Ugly loss there. The injuries are mounting up on defense. And they got some injuries on offense as well. Can't all be Josh Allen. James Cook didn't have a good game either. This team, I think, will still make the playoffs, but I do have my concerns with them. I do have my concerns with them, especially because they're not even in first place. The Patriots are. Patriots look very good. Drake May, he did throw a bad pick in the end zone that I thought costed them against the Bucs, but Drake May has played very well this year. The defense has looked good. TreVeyon Henderson had a breakout game. Those two big rushing touchdowns. With the injuries out of the backfield, Stephon Diggs has been making plays. Back-to-back weeks with the touchdown. So things are looking good for the Patriots. They look like they're back. They're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. They really are. And the Patriots, they got their franchise quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, the way they're looking and the way the Bills are looking, I mean, the Bills' window is closed. I don't know if I'm going to say that, but I think the Bills need to make a lot of changes. They're going to need to make some changes in the offseason, both on the sidelines and personnel. Obviously not Josh Allen, but they got to get more Josh Allen some more help because this roster's not cutting it. This roster's not taking them to a Super Bowl, that's for sure. The Jets, hey, you know what? Back-to-back wins. Getting that win out of the bye, I think, is huge. A lot of Jet fans were kind of skeptical after that win against the Bengals. Like, all right, you won that game. Are you going to be able to come out of the bye and get a win? They did. And it was not really with the help. The offense really didn't give them a lot of help. They had two special teams. They had two kick returns for touchdowns on back-to-back. I think on back-to-back possessions. Justin Fields did throw past a little bit of a dump-off pass to Breece Hall, and he took that to the house. Hey, that's progress. That is progress. That is what Jet fans want to see, is progress. And that is what they got. That is what we're seeing right now. Now, you got to see it continue, obviously. But the way things were going and where we are now, I mean, it was like, is Aaron Glenn going to be one and done? I mean, I know they still have their complaints with how he handles the media and how he doesn't commit to who's starting at quarterback every week. And they got a short week. It's Patriots, Jets on Thursday. That's the Thursday night game. But you know what? It's progress. It's progress. They're winning games. Okay, and this is coming off of, they had a lot going on with the news on Nick Mangold, and, they won the game for him. The first home game since everything that transpired with his passing. So that was big. And also, they were busy at the trade deadline. You traded away Quinnen Williams. You traded away Sauce Gardner. You get some first-round picks back for those players. They have a direction, and they are committed to this regime going forward. They're going to be the guys that are going to select their quarterback because they're going to go after a quarterback. You have draft capital that you can move up if you have to go get him. Now, you got to make this is going to make or break the franchise once again because, we saw what happened with Zach Wilson. That set the franchise back. They've been struggling to find that franchise guy. Darnold before that, and then, they had the Ryan Fitzpatrick years, and then, Geno Smith and Sanchez. They're looking for their guy. They are looking for their guy. It's not Justin Fields, that's for sure. It's not Justin Fields. But I like what the Jets did at the trade deadline. I know some of my friends are not thrilled with giving up Sauce Gardner. I get that. I understand that. But I like it. You just got to hit on the picks. You just got to hit on the picks. And if they could do that, they're going to be in good shape. And you didn't trade away Garrett Wilson. You didn't trade Breece Hall. And supposedly there was a offer on the table from the Chiefs. They offered a 4th-round pick for Breece Hall. Jets didn't do that. I think that was smart. Keep Breece Hall around. Obviously, you're going to keep Garrett Wilson. These guys you got on the offensive side of the ball. Okay, you got to find the right guy for QB. You got to find that. And they got the tackles. The offensive line is not too bad. You hope Mason Taylor continues to develop. There's some pieces. All right. That defense, though, that we saw from 2023, that was solid. You're gonna have to reload on that. That's a distant memory. All right, so defense needs some work. You need to get some more playmakers on offense as well. You got to get the quarterback situation figured out. But the Jets are going in a direction. They are. They're going in a direction. If you're a Jet fan, obviously you're cautiously optimistic. Because on one hand, you're like, hey, we got all these picks, but you got to hit on them. And they've won back-to-back games. They got to hit on these picks. So we'll see how that goes. The Dolphins, I mean, look, they beat the Bills, they beat the Falcons. You're like, wow, I mean, look at this. Where did this come from? And they lose to the they lose to the Ravens, and they look flat. They did let go of the GM. So we'll see how they finish out the year, but it's just I don't know what to make of them. Well, I mean, they're not a good team, but every week you're surprised when they play well because you just think that they're done. So I mean, they're playing for pride at this point. They're not going to make a late run. But yeah, I mean, look, they beat the Bills, so they're showing that they're still playing for their coach. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the future holds for Mike McDaniel. So now with the NFC East, we talked about the Eagles. We talked about the Commanders and their issues this year. Eagles are going to run away with this thing. The Cowboys, they bought at the trade deadline. They got Logan Wilson from the Bengals, and then they also traded for Quinnen Williams. Look, I don't know how much those moves are going to help. I mean, they are going to help. But the secondary is not great. The offense obviously is going to put up a lot of points. But Cowboys are not making the playoffs. They're not. They're just not making it. I think Dak Prescott has had a great year. Look, Dallas is able to run the football too. I mean, they are a balanced offense. They are one of the top offenses in the NFL. But it's just, yeah, it is. It's not going to be, the playoffs are not happening this year for Dallas. They're not. And should have paid Micah Parsons. I mean, I don't think it wouldn't, the Cowboys still would probably be in the same position if they had Micah Parsons, but if you had Micah Parsons, then you wouldn't have had to trade away assets to get, these two guys that I just don't think are going to completely change your defense. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. They play the Raiders on Monday night.